Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and one of my readers recently asked me to help her make a hyena mask, and I thought that would be really fun. Now, if you've actually read my book on how to make masks, you know that I usually use a mask form, either a plastic one or one that you make yourself, and then use modeling clay over it to make a form, to do all the sculpting basically with the clay, and then put the paper mache over that, then pull the paper mache off when it's dry. It's a really easy way to make a mask, but I was thinking this time I wanted to do something a little bit more challenging for me to try to figure out how a person could make a realistic looking mask with materials that you would already have just lying around the house. A lot of people don't have any modeling clay, for instance, or they might not have a mask form. So how would you make a realistic mask without one? I decided that cardboard and aluminum foil and masking tape would be a good basis for the mask, and then using just ordinary paper mache with paper strips torn from newspaper and just flour and water paste. I think that would be a good way to do it if you didn't want to have to run to the art store or something. In order to get the cardboard folded up and bent around into the shape so that it would actually look like a hyena, I did have to make a pattern. I put the pattern out on my blog. You can download it and print it out. It's going to take 4 different sheets of paper to print it, and then you just tape it together and put it on some cardboard and cut it out. That process is really easy. Once I had the pattern done, I was able to put this guy together. Probably took 2 hours. Making the pattern itself wasn't easy, so it may not be exactly right. There may be some things that you'll need to fiddle with it just a little bit, because I don't have a computer program to help me do that. I made about 5 of them and finally came up with one that works. When I did finally get one where all the pieces went together properly, folding the cardboard itself was really easy and it went together really fast. So let me show you how this guy is actually made up to this point, and then in the next video I'll show you how to put the paper mache on there, how to get it dry really quickly, and how to paint it so it'll look really nice. When the pattern comes out of the printer, of course, it's going to have a white stripe all the way around the edges where there isn't any printing, and we need to cut that off so that we can match up all the lines. Now just lay them all out on your table so that all the lines match up, and tape them all the way across the entire rectangle so that the individual pieces won't fall apart. Now go ahead and cut out the individual pieces. You don't need to actually cut out around the lines, because we're going to be putting this on the cardboard with a glue stick and then cutting. If you don't have a glue stick, then do cut out all the way along the individual details so that you can trace around it with a pencil. The exception to that is the ear. We do want to cut out all the way around the edges of the ear, because we're not going to cut it out of cardboard. We're going to use it as a pattern to make an aluminum foil ear. Now you can go ahead and put your pattern pieces on your cardboard. I'm using the glue stick again. If you don't have a glue stick, use small pieces of tape in a few spots around the edge. If your cardboard happens to be big enough, try to line up the corrugations so they go up and down on the head and the muzzle, because it makes it a little bit easier to fold those pieces. If your cardboard isn't big enough for that, it's okay. You can still fold the pattern, but it's just, cardboard is hard to fold up anyway, so it's easier if you can get those corrugations going in the right direction. Now we're ready to cut the pieces out. So I'm going to be putting a piece of cardboard under my pattern. I don't want to scratch lines in my table when I cut out the pieces, and I'm going to use an extremely sharp blade. If you're a younger artist and you're not really comfortable using a really sharp blade, be sure to ask someone to help you with this part, because it can be a bit dangerous. It's also a little bit difficult to cut cardboard. You usually have to cut through it several times to get the pieces so they'll actually pop apart. And when you come to the eye, this is going to be the tricky part if you want to actually see out of your mask. I didn't cut the center circle out of my eyes because I'm going to put my mask on the wall, and that means that I don't have to see out of it. If you do want to wear your mask, cut the center circle out before you cut out the large part. because it's going to be really difficult to cut that hole out once the piece, once the eye itself has been unattached from the big piece of cardboard. Now that I have the center cut out, I can cut around the outside very, very carefully. I don't want to break into this piece right here. It's going to be really delicate. When we're pushing it into the mask, as you'll see us do in just a minute here, you'll see that that is not going to hold up very well. So we need to reinforce it. And the way I'm going to do that is by using a little bit of aluminum foil. And I'm going to scrunch it up into a long noodle shape. If you squish it together really, really tight, it becomes very strong. And now I'm going to use some narrow pieces of masking tape just to hold that on there. And of course, if you want to put your mask on the wall like I did, you don't have to do all of that work. But if you want to see out, you definitely need an eye hole. Now that we have all of our pieces cut out, you can just take the pattern off. You don't need that on there anymore. In fact, you don't want it on because it would interfere with the paper mache sticking to your cardboard. So now what we need to do is to really kind of work this cardboard. It's flat. It doesn't bend very easily. So we want to soften it up. So just do this to it. Do it in both directions, both with the corrugations and against it. Just keep on working, and do this with both the muzzle and the head. Now that we have our pieces cut out and we've got them a little bit more bendy than they were to start with, we can start taping it together. The easiest way to do this is to put a piece of tape at the top of the cut and then pull it together. Go ahead and do all of the those triangular pieces that have been cut out at the top of the mask. Make sure that you get the tape stuck on really, really hard. Don't bother with the ones down below on the cheek area because we're going to be doing that just a little bit later. You're going to notice that right at the very points of those triangles, you're going to end up with kind of sharp bits on the cardboard. And since we don't really want sharp points on the mask, that's not very realistic, go ahead and kind of push on it so that you can round those out a little bit. Now we need to make a space for those cardboard eyes that we cut out, and we also need to shape the muzzle. To do that, kind of pull down on the bottom of the eye hole in the headpiece and push up on the eye hole, and that creates the muzzle and a space for the eyes. And now we can kind of push that cardboard eye in there. Now you see why you have to reinforce the edges if you've made a hole in the eye, because we're being pretty rough with it. We want the cardboard eye space to actually hold the upper lid and the lower part of the muzzle in the right shape. This part is higher, this part is lower, and they're not symmetrical. So this part here goes closer to the nose. I'm going to use lots of tape. Okay, if you can see, that actually brings it down so that the top of the muzzle is rounded, and then we have a flatter portion here. But this is the bottom of this cheek, and we don't want it to be totally flat. We need it to come down. So we're going to press those in and tape those just like we did the top. Again, starting out at the top edge, or the piece closer to the actual edge of the cardboard, and then pulling it closed. This is his muzzle, and this is actually where the nose goes, right down there. It doesn't look like a nose, not yet anyway, but it's going to. See how it just folds in? These two pieces come together. This is his upper lip. You can see the split there that dogs have. Our hyena is sort of vaguely related to a dog. The easiest way to do this is to pull these two together and tape them. And now we can push it back so that it matches the front of his nose area. We're going to give him a nice big nose with aluminum foil, but we do need kind of a foundation for that nose, a spot for the nose to sit on. Now this part here is kind of sticking out, but it's going to fold under like that, So in order to get it to fold, we needed to bend it on a line that's parallel with this one. So we're going to bend it right here. Gonna smoosh this around so that it goes in a curve and push it right there so that it matches up with the upper lip. We're going to add the lower lip with aluminum foil. Now we need to actually tape these together. You start at the top of the muzzle and work down. Now we need to make a couple of great big ears. We get the pattern out that we have and a couple of pieces of aluminum foil. We want the foil to be cut just a little bit wider than the widest part of the ear. We're going to pull off 2 pieces just about that size and then fold them in half. Then place your pattern over those folded pieces of aluminum foil and bend the edges up just a little bit so you have a nice crease all the way around the edge of the ear. Now you can very carefully pull out that pattern and you'll be able to see the line of the ear. We're going to be folding up, kind of rolling up and folding that aluminum foil just like we did when I showed you how to make that reinforcing wire, essentially, for the eyes. The crumpled aluminum foil around the edge is going to allow us to shape and bend the ear in a nice natural form in a way that would be really difficult if we were using flat cardboard. Go ahead and roll it and press it down just as tight as you can and keep the shape of the ear. Don't fold up or crumple the bottom edge because that is going to be what we'll use to actually tape the ear onto the mask. When it's time to do the other ear, turn the pattern over so that that wide part, the biggest curve, goes on the outside of the ear. Now you can put your tape over that bottom portion. Go ahead and fold it up so that it'll fit over the mask. And then it goes right about where the cardboard begins to bend backwards because of the way that we taped the cardboard up when we were making the head. It should go right along that edge. Because of the way we folded up the cardboard, we already have kind of a pointy head, and hyenas look like they have a point that comes up right between the ears because they have a ridge of hair. It's kind of like a mane. If you've ever seen a Rhodesian Ridgeback, they kind of have the same thing. And in order to make that pointy bit, we're just going to use some aluminum foil and tape it on right between the ears. Then add a little bit more tape to the bottom of the ears at the back so that they'll stick on really good. Now we're going to give our hyena his really strong jaw muscle by adding some aluminum foil right there between the cheek and the bottom of the ear. We're using the aluminum foil as though it was clay, so we want it nice and tapered at the top and wide at the bottom. Go ahead and squish and push until you get it the shape you like. It comes all the way from this edge right here where we tape the 2 pieces together all the way to the back of the ear. Okay, I think I can just squish it down here to make a nice even line, so I don't think I'm going to have to add any more to get it to kind of blend in with the cardboard. I believe that's going to work. Much closer, so I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. I'm going to do a little bit of work on his muzzle now. It just needs a little bit more puffiness, a little roundness right here. So I'm just going to add a little bit of aluminum foil. It goes right there. And we don't want to put so much tape on that we lose that kind of upside down heart shape that's right here, because that's his upper lip and he needs that. Now there's a dip in between the 2 sides of his front of his muzzle. So I'm going to use really little pieces now. I'm going to use 2 of them, one on each side, and make sure that there's a real obvious dip in between. So I'm going to make kind of a strong edge on the one side and just real tapered on the other side. And stick that right there. Make sure that I get a nice sharp line right here and kind of rounded on the edges. And do the other side. My tape is trying to cover up that nice little dip that I just made. So I'm going to use the edge of this knife and just push it right in there like that. That way it won't get lost when the paper mache is added. And now I'm going to give him a lower lip because it looks really silly with that one. I'm making a heavy, thick piece right here on the bottom, on the one end, and I want it tapered back. And I'm going to put it right there. Make sure that the edges are just a little bit like squarish. Keep that line really straight even though the tape is trying to cover it up. Make this kind of crisp here. Now we need a nose. I googled hyena nose so I would know what a real one looked like, and then I got a little carried away making it look realistic. You don't need to go into nearly as much detail. For the top portion, this is the part of the nose that goes over the top of the muzzle and then over the top of the nostrils. You can see that that's shaped kind of like a really wide U. I taped it on so it would stick out just a little bit farther than the muzzle, and then I made sure that there was a real strong dip right down the middle using the back of a knife. And then I made two noodles. They're kind of comma shaped noodles that will meet at the middle and then wrap around underneath the nostril and then around that rectangular piece that I already taped on there. When both of them are taped on, it creates that kind of center column that goes in the middle that also has a groove right down the middle of it. This looks very much like a dog's nose. And then there's going to be just one more thing to add after I kind of fiddle with things just a little bit. There's a small triangular piece that goes down underneath the nose. Right now it's dipping up and it really needs to dip down, so I just add a little bit of a triangular spot of aluminum foil and that fills that right in. And now it looks like this. If you wanted to make a much simpler nose, it would look just fine, so you don't need to get quite this carried away. Since I'm putting my mask on the wall and I didn't need to see out of it, I didn't make those eye holes like I showed you how to do before. And because I don't have the holes, I'm going to make round eyes. This is just half of a ball out of aluminum foil. And then I'll make another one, hopefully the same size so that they'll match. I'm going to go ahead and put the lower lid on there first. Just going to make a really narrow noodle, I guess we're going to call it. Just to go right under there. Kind of flattened at the bottom and rounded at the top. So it just goes right around there. And I do want that to be a fairly sharp line, so I'm going to use my knife here and just poke it. Now we finally get to put those eyelids on there, and this is going to be a little bit tricky. I made a little flattish piece, and it was too big the first time I tried it, so I did have to cut it with my scissors. I want this line to stay with that angle, at least I do. You may prefer to do him a little bit happier looking. I kind of like that downward slant, so that's what I'm doing. And I still need to cut some more. Again, just using it the same way I would clay. Put it on. If it doesn't work, take a little bit off or add a little bit more. Okay, I'm happy with it. I'm going to tape that on and do the other side. I just want to make sure that we've got real strong lines here so that it doesn't get lost in the paper mache. Now you're probably wondering what this thing is for. I made you cut out something called a temporary brace. We haven't actually used it yet. And the reason for it, is, first of all, is to bring this shape just a little bit inward, because it's a little bit wider than it needs to be right now. We're just going to bring it in just a tad bit. But the other reason is that paper mache can sometimes warp cardboard when it dries. And in order to avoid that, we're just going to use our shape. We're going to just put it right in there, and we're going to tape it to the inside. And then it will dry in that shape after the paper mache is applied to it. Okay, that's going to be all for today. I'm actually ready for a cup of tea. This has been quite a big project, really, getting this cut out and all folded up and taped together and all the aluminum foil molded on there. It's taken quite a bit of time, and so I'm going to go ahead and put this down for today. I'll finish putting the paper mache on here tomorrow. I'll let it dry, then I'll paint it, and as soon as that is done, I'm going to put up another video so that you can see the process from here on out. So in the meantime, be sure and come over to the blog, grab the pattern if you'd like to make your own hyena mask, or just join the conversation. We have a great group of people out there who always love to see what you're doing, and I certainly do too. So come on over, visit me, ultimatepapermache.com. I'll see you in a few days with the rest of this mask.